We've got the full length specifications for the Canon EOS R8, and it certainly doesn't disappoint. It does have a 24.2 full-frame sensor. It does have a Digic X image processor. But does it have that same, well, variable angle touchscreen LCD like the Sony a7R5? Details coming up, but first, please do me a favor and follow me on Twitter, subscribe, choose all notifications, like, comment, and all that good stuff, as it really helps this channel grow. Canon Rumours just leaked the full specifications for the Canon EOS R8, and without further ado, let's get right to them. As I said in the intro, it does have a 24.2 megapixel sensor. It's full frame. And from what I'm reading into this, it's going to have the exact same sensor as the Canon EOS R6 Mark II. It makes sense. After all, why produce a completely different sensor? You've got the economies of scale. So for all those of you that were thinking it was going to be APS-C, I told you that didn't make sense. Full frame, 24.2 megapixel sensor. And of course, there's no surprising that it's going to have the Digic X image processor. Since that processor came out in 2020 in the Canon 1DX Mark III, their flagship mirrorless camera, Canon has put that in every single camera, dropping down the cost of this thing and, well, achieving economies of scale. But I'm also excited that it's going to have a dual pixel autofocus system, dual pixel autofocus 2, the same one in the R3 and the R6 Mark II. And in terms of what it can focus on, well, Canon's expanded that library just a little bit. Obviously, it can track peoples and animals, but it can also track trains, cars, and aircraft. But sadly, there is no UFO detection, although what I noticed just yesterday is apparently there's a UFO detection app out there that you can download to help you better track UFOs. So unfortunately, dual pixel autofocus 2 doesn't have UFO detection. Maybe we'll have to wait for the Canon EOS R1 to get that feature. As I alluded to in the introduction, this is a pretty powerful camera. Some of the specifications here are shooting quite a bit above what I thought. I thought it would shoot around 20 to 30 frames per second, but just like the Canon EOS R6, the Canon EOS R8 can shoot up to 40 frames per second. That's obviously electronic. There's no mention of what the mechanical speed would be, but 40 frames per second. 40 frames per second, that's pretty impressive. Same as the Canon EOS R6 Mark II. So will it do 15 or 12 frames per second mechanical? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, one thing I expect, because again, this camera cost $14.99, that's super cheap. Well, it's not super cheap, but when you look at the R6 Mark II at $24.99, to be able to do 40 frames per second, the same speed? I don't think so. What I suspect here is the buffers change. It can't store nearly as many images, and of course it takes longer to clear, and that would certainly make sense. But to be able to shoot 40 frames per second for at least a second and then have it take time to clear out, I think is perfect for this camera. 40 frames per second. Look, I'm happy with 20 frames per second in the Canon EOS R5, and if you've never shot with something like 20 frames per second or faster, after doing it a couple of times and you get back and you take a look at all your photos, you realize you're inundated. So whenever you go out and shoot, generally you're holding down that shutter button for a fraction of a second. You're not holding it down for 1, 2, 3, certainly not 20 frames per second, or certainly not for 20 seconds, unless of course you're doing a video review like I do here on the channel sometimes. 40 frames per second. So yeah, definitely I expect them to pull down on the buffer just a little bit. But now let's take a look at the video specifications, and once again, the Canon EOS R8 doesn't disappoint. Apparently both me and John got it wrong. The Canon EOS R8, I almost said R6 Mark II because they're the same specifications. It can shoot 4K, 24, 25, 30, 50, and 60 frames per second in 4K. 4K, 24, 25, 30, 50, and 60 frames per second. 6K oversample 4K, Canon log 3. That's pretty impressive. And in terms of 120 frames per second in 1080, sadly we don't get that, but we get 180 frames per second in 1080. I'm almost wondering, is it April the 1st? No, it's February, not April the 1st. Yeah, 4K up to 60 frames per second, 6K oversample 4K, Canon log 3, and we can also do 180 frames per second in 1080 on a camera that sells for $14.99. That's pretty impressive. However, there is one specification that has me scratching my head. Canon Rumours says that IBIS is not installed. What does that mean? It's not going to include IBIS, that you can purchase it for $99 to add it to the camera, or that it doesn't come with IBIS. I'm going to assume that it doesn't come with IBIS, but to me, I don't think that's a real big negative. I know everybody wants IBIS, but let's think about the outcomes here. When you're shooting video run and gun with a full frame sensor, you still have that jarring. It's not perfect for, well, walking or even running or even on a bicycle. I use a gimbal for that. Whenever I'm outside, I'm doing run and gun, I'm walking, I'm running, I'm riding a bike, I'm in a car vehicle, I'm always using a gimbal. It's the only way to get that smooth cinematic footage. However, if I'm standing like a tripod, then yes, the IBIS really helps, but only if I'm shooting at 24, 35, 50 frames per second. If I'm shooting at 24, 25, and 50 millimeters, because you're shooting wide, so you're not going to get a lot of jarring, but if you zoom into 100 millimeters or greater, no matter what kind of IBIS system you have, you're not going to be able to hold it steady for a long period of time. So if it doesn't have IBIS, or if it has it as a purchased option, of which I doubt, I just get a sense here it doesn't include IBIS, I don't really think this is a big deal. The camera has a variance monitor, and it also has a new form factor. Now, we don't know what it's going to look like. There are no leaked photos, so that's an opportunity for another video, right? So we don't have the leaked photos, but the camera apparently has a new, and I want to quote this exactly, a new variable angle monitor, or new variable angle LCD. Is it going to be like the one in the Sony a7R5 or the GH6? Boy, I would like that. Boy, that's incredible, because it gives everybody what they want. It allows us to have a flip out screen for vlogging. It also allows us, when we're shooting with something like a 100 to 500 millimeter, we can bring out that LCD so our eye's completely in line with the lens, and I think that's really, really terrific. To round up the specifications, it has a 3.5 millimeter jack, no mention of a headphone jack, and it does support streaming over USB-C. It's a pretty impressive camera. I saw these specifications. The first thing I did when I saw the long list at Canon Rumours, I took a quick look at them. I really want to examine and go like, okay, is this just one of those set of specifications like the R3 that we look at and go like, yeah, this is not that great. This is kind of lame. It's kind of boring. But 4K 60, Canon Log 3, 180 frames per second in 1080, 40 frames per second stills, 24.2 megapixel sensor with a Digic X image processor, and I can go on. Those are good specifications, but to see them at $14.99, are we being punked? Is this a fake rumor? Are we just being lied to? Is somebody misleading us? It almost seems too good to be true. $14.99. And in terms of when are we going to be getting this announcement? Well, as I published in my video yesterday, this one here, How to Fly says it's going to be coming out. The announcement is going to be on January the 8th. Try that again. That's January the 8th, Japanese Standard Time. I'm assuming midnight because that's pretty common time. That's a pretty common time, and that translates to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York and Toronto time, the day earlier, January the 7th. So I'm really looking forward to this. I'm actually picking up a new microphone today. It's a Shure MV7, I believe. It's a USB mic, so when I do the coverage of this announcement, I want to make sure that my audio is really good. So this is a new trend that I'm doing. Once I get validation, confirmation that we are getting the announcement at 10 a.m., did I say January the 7th earlier? I meant February the 7th. February the 7th at 10 a.m. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a live stream for 9 o'clock, 1 hour before the announcement, and I'm going to have a guest. We're going to talk about all these video features and stills capabilities. We're going to talk about the latest rumors of the Canon EOS R8, and then we're going to cover the announcement live, so that way we can cover it all off together with my guest, and then we'll do a post-game review. We'll take a look at the camera. We'll take a look at the specifications that we got. We'll see how many we got right and wrong in terms of the rumors, and we'll take a look at who this camera's made for. I really think that this camera is designed for, well, family members that want to get the best that they possibly can at an affordable price for both stills and video. And I think this camera is going to be a hit. I'm really excited by this camera. Wow, $14.99 with all those capabilities. I think this is going to be a top seller. I think it's going to do really, really well. But there's several more things we need to get ahead of this announcement. And now that we have the full specifications, I think that an announcement next week is most likely. But we need to get validation of that. And of course, we have pictures, and what I sense is happening, Canon Rumours is going to save the pictures for another day, and then they're going to save their confirmation of when the live stream is actually going to take place. So yeah, I'm really excited. This is shaping out to be a really good camera. I wasn't that impressed with the R7, but this camera, being a full frame camera and everything that it offers, not having IBIS, if that is true, I don't think is a really big deal. Like I said, I've got it on the Canon EOS R5, and on full frame cameras, where IBIS really kicks in is if you're shooting stills and you're shooting in low light, you can hold down that shutter button for longer durations without having to worry about blur. And I think that's where IBIS really comes in on a full frame camera. Now, if we look at Panasonic with their GH6 and the S5 Mark II, well, Panasonic's always been very good at producing very, very good, very usable in-body image stabilization. But I still say that when it comes to producing really, really good cinematic smooth video, always shoot with a gimbal. It's what I do. I just, for run and gun, when you're out and about, nothing beats a gimbal. It just gives you the best shots, especially if you're moving around. You want to you want to pan and tilt the camera, it's a really good thing. So if you want to stay up to date on all the latest camera news and rumors, specifically what's happening with the Canon EOS R8, do yourself and me a favor, make sure you hit the subscribe button, but also choose all notifications. So that way, as soon as I publish a new video like this one here, you'll get notified by YouTube so you can stay up to date on all the latest camera news and rumors. And if you want to pre-order the Canon EOS R8, I already have a link down below in the description. However, it's not active, but as soon as Canon makes the pre-order available on B&H or Amazon.com, that link will be live, so you can keep that link, you can keep refreshing it, so that way, as soon as it's available, you can purchase. However, I do need to disclose that if you do use that link, while it doesn't cost you anything, I do get 1 to 2% back as a commission, and it really helps this channel grow. I also recommend you follow me on Twitter because there's a lot of news stories that come out that are too small for a video, and I include those on my Twitter account. So, you know, one source for all your information flows, all your information, news, and rumors. And I also cover up many numers as well. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.